Hello everybody and welcome to the Robert H. Wilde True Crime Show. Firstly, I need to thank Foxy Harley for her gift sub. Amazingly, she's done 3 in a row, which we're now into the 3rd subscribing period of this stream, so that's great. And yes, Foxy has already noticed there have been some upgrades. Well, there's not actually been an upgrade. There's just been me fixing the settings on the camera so it actually looks properly like I want. So enjoy a new quality of stream. Thanks, Foxy. I'm pleased it's looking good and sounding good. I'm going to be honest with everybody. I kind of want to go and redo all the crimes I've already covered in this new high definition. You know. Kind of a bit. Now I've got it looking like this. The other ones are a bit embarrassing. The VODs are all on YouTube. Yeah. So, that's great. So, everybody do follow Foxy, who's a great variety streamer, who I believe has recently acquired an upgrade herself. And Sydney, who does great in real life streams. I do have a mention of Michigan for you, Sydney, later in the stream. I do have a mention of Michigan. Unfortunately, this is a true crime stream, so you really don't want where you come from mentioned. Right. Like, in some, like the lottery, oh yeah, someone won the lottery in our state, that's great. When I'm doing a stream, you don't want your state on, as a general rule. Hello, Tom. Great to see you. Hope you and your wife are doing as best you can. Hope you're all right. Nice to see you. Tom Hansen is an excellent drummer. My favourite Twitch drummer. So do please give him a follow as well. Thanks for the shout out, Foxy. Right, we've got 3 stories tonight, and then 2 little in the news crime things to discuss. One of them I'm hoping will be very thought-provoking because it's pure sci-fi. Like, it's pure mad sci-fi. So if you've been watching this stream since the beginning, you will know what a frog is, because we did a frogging evening. Hello, Karen. Oh, thanks, Karen. Yeah, it is looking great. So, Karen, I've rearranged the order of the events, because Karen said she really likes the creepy ones as opposed to the just plain horrible ones. So I've put the creepiest one first, so we're going to do it now, Karen. So Karen's a great streamer. She does 40s, 60s, 70s, and Halloween/pagan streams. Do give her a follow, please. If you've watched this stream regularly, you'll know what frogging is. But for everybody else, it's not as fun as it sounds. Although you will be relieved to know it's not related to dogging in any way. Yeah. Yes, Tom, yes. It's not a new camera. I've just fixed the settings. I mean, it's taken 2 months. That's not really a ringing endorsement to my tech skills, is it? Right, I'll stop there. It turns out, right, so this camera, this is a Sony mirrorless DSLR, has got a menu system, right? And it's got a menu, loads and loads and loads of menus, all in the menu. And I'd been through everything, and I couldn't get it looking this good. And it turns out there's a second menu. Please, designers, just have one menu. I didn't know I'm supposed to look for another menu. Before anybody asks in chat, did you read the handbook? I'm British, what makes you think I read the handbook? Alright, so frogging is where somebody lives in a property they're not meant to. Not in a squatting way. They live in a property while other people are living in that property, but they don't know you're there. And obviously, lots of creepy and weird shenanigans happen. So last time we covered... thank you, C1 Rockstar, for a sub. Brilliant. Thank you for subscribing for the first time. That's very gratefully received. So we did some frogging last time, but I've actually managed to find a frogging story that's actually even worse. Yeah. Are we having a good evening, Sewell? So, in 1986, the Bowen family were living together. The Bowen family were Father Frank, daughter Tina, who was 15, and younger daughter Karen. Things had been going well. But then the daughters began to worry that their house was haunted. The TV would turn itself on and off. Objects would be moved around without anybody having touched them. Food would disappear. So the children told their father, we're haunted, and he's like, we're not haunted. That's ridiculous. And they weren't haunted, it was much worse. So on December 8th, 1986, Tina and Karen were with a friend in the house when they were attacked. They were adamant that they found the toilets had been used. They were adamant that they had not used the toilet. And the girls managed to convince Father Frank that something was happening. So he searched the house and had the shock of his life when he opened a cupboard. It wasn't a ghost. There was a young man in the cupboard. He was 16 and he had a wrench, a hatchet. Now, some accounts very politely say he had painted his face and altered his hair. Other accounts say he was basically cosplaying racist Native American outfits. So I think you know where we're going with this. Anyway, he leapt out of the cupboard and, under the threat of his weapons, forced everyone into a bedroom. It's unclear what would have happened next. It isn't, but we'll get to that. Because Tina got out through a window and called the police. When they arrived home, the boy was gone. People tried to comfort the girls. The family moved to a hotel and police started a search. But on the 10th, Frank had to go home in his car to collect some belongings. And as he pulled up, he saw this man staring out of the window at him. He was in the house again. He called police. Officer Stephen Benazon told the Celtic Sentinels, when I opened the door on the right-hand wall, I saw a knife sticking out of the wall. And it's through a picture, a family picture, written on a magic marker, I'm still here, come find me. The hair goes up on the back of my head. On another wall there's another picture saying, I'm going to kill you all, with a knife through it. This time the police did a detailed search of the house and they found a triangular cavity in the wall of the bathroom where this boy had been living for some time. He'd been eating the food, he'd been moving stuff around, watching the TV, haunting the house. He was arrested and sent to juvenile detention. It turned out he was called Daniel LaPlante, and he was known to the family. Tina had been out on a date with him, found him very weird and didn't want anything to do with him. He had become obsessed. So who was Daniel LaPlante? He was hyperactive. He was hyperactive, dyslexic, didn't get on well at school academically. He was shunned by his classmates for being weird. He'd been sexually abused by a father, a stepfather, and a psychiatrist. He'd begun breaking into homes and stealing things and was known to be violent. He'd become obsessed with Tina and found a way to hide in her home and manipulate her and enjoy it. But, hello Steve, great to see you. Steve, what do we think? What do we think, Steve, of the camera? Thank you for subscribing for 3 months, Steve. Heroic work. Steve says, my goodness, who is this gorgeous specimen? Oh, we've got a hype train. Thanks everybody, we've hit a hype train. This is our second hype train. Very exciting. Yep. I was just telling them, Steve, I kind of feel like I need to re-record all the earlier ones. I mean, it would save me time on the preparing the material. So that isn't the end of the story, though. Oh, thank you, Steve, for gifting a sub to Karen. Brilliant, thank you very much. This isn't the end of the story, because although Daniel LaPlante was now in juvenile detention, he was let out on bail. And it turned out the Bowens were, in a very strange way, very, very lucky to be alive. Because when he was released on bail, almost a year later, having started robbing houses, he re-entered the home of the Gustafsons. He was going to rob it again. Unfortunately, he bumped into Priscilla Gustafson and her son William. Priscilla was pregnant. He murdered them. He raped Priscilla, shot her in the head. He drowned William in the bathtub, and when Abigail arrived as he was home from school, as he was still in the house, he drowned her in a different bathtub. And then he went to a birthday party and played with his niece. He was swiftly caught and received 3 consecutive life sentences. Obviously, the Bowens were now incredibly traumatised because they knew how close they had come. They told the Lowell Sun, if Daniel LaPlante does not get convicted and gets out again, I will personally kill him. You can't imagine what kind of fear we have been living in. He's mentally insane, there is no question about it. And now I am financially broken, emotionally disturbed, and trying to put my life together again. He appealed his sentence quite a bit later, because a law came in saying juveniles could not be given life sentences. It wasn't retroactive, and he appealed. He claimed that words cannot fully capture what I have done. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry. He was not sorry. A child and forensic psychiatrist said he showed no empathy at any point. His actions are not consistent with someone who is remorseful. He remains in prison trying to get out. And he shouldn't, because he's a lunatic. So a bit of frogging for you to kick off. Thank you very much for the gift subs here on Rockstar. Hello, King Cobra. Good to see you in. We have reached level 2 on the hype train. Do please give King Cobra a follow. They are a fellow streamer. A bit of frogging there for you. So we're going to pause now to do... We've got 2 more full stories, but we're going to pause now because there's quite a bit of chat, and I want to pose something. I want to pose a question to chat. So this news story appeared. So this is genuine, right? Somebody has genuinely suggested this. They believe that they could, with technology developing as it is, badly. If you've got a prisoner, you could have a prisoner serve an entire life sentence or more in minutes by implanting memories into their brains. So they think they've spent hundreds of years in prison. They feel they spent hundreds of years in prison. But when they stop, it's just been a few minutes. Somebody thinks this is a good idea. What's interesting about this to me is that they've still got the same body that when they finished. Like if you put somebody in prison for 50 years, they're probably not in a position to as easily kill people again because they're much older. In this instance, yes, they've lived through a vast amount of time, but why would they not then just go out? But then, of course, they take it to another stage, which is if you can take people and implant, 50 years of artificial memories in someone's head, you can just change their head, right? You can think. So what we're essentially saying is that people are proposing that you take criminals and rather than stick them in prison for the rest of their lives, rewire their brains. Now, if that's just not the most madly sci-fi crazy nonsense you've ever heard, like, at what point do we sit there going, oh yeah, wouldn't that be a great moral idea? That makes sense. I mean, that couldn't possibly go wrong at all, can it? How could that go awfully, awfully wrong? But this is genuine. Somebody is trying to sort of... Well, when I say it's genuine, they're probably just trying to get a load of funding, which will never, ever go anywhere. But people are beginning to think this is a good idea when it's manifestly a terrible idea on every level. It reminds me of... does anyone remember that film from the 90s? Juliette Lewis and... I should have prepared this bit. Strange Days, was it called? Strange Days? Which is essentially they have a system where you can record your memories and give it to other people. Well, it turns out we've reached the point where that's almost becoming real. I'm great to see everyone in chat having a great time. This is really good. I feel we've got a good vibe going, despite the content. I do want to point out that Steve Forward, who is in chat, who is a multi-instrumentalist, but mainly does guitar, will be on the front page of Twitch all day. And it is now Friday, so all day today. And he will be doing 4 sets. I am taking this opportunity to raid into him, because I've always wanted to do that, and now I can do. So, if you like classic rock guitar, and you're free tomorrow, there's a fairly good chance he'll be on. Oh wow! Thanks, Karen. Karen has gifted a sub to Jeff Lynne. I presume it's not the real Jeff Lynne. Right. Fairly certain it isn't. But that would be quite fun if it is. So thank you very much. We completed 50% of level 2. That's excellent. Really good with 5 stars. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. So we come now to what is the main... I wish God lead, says Karen. Yeah. We come now to the main event. Oh wow, fun. Jeff Lynne 2020 was my very first chatter in my stream on November 20th, 2021. Wow. I'm sure it is a Jeff Lynne, just not the Jeff Lynne. Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to sound unappreciative of Jeff Lynne 2020. You're very welcome. This is fine. I'm sorry if I just made you feel very inferior. Okay, to that one. You're great. We love you. Bit awkward. Just started slacking somebody off on the stream. No, he never came back. Oh well, sod him then. So I need to give you a little bit of history for this story to make any sense, because this story is set in America, and I'm going to refer to the Secret Service. But they're not doing the thing you think. So, when the Secret Service in America were first set up, they did not protect the president. Right? They investigated, essentially, counterfeiting in things. So, in this story, the Secret Service is still investigating counterfeiters. It was only later that they were expanded and took over defending the president and everything we think about the Secret Service today. Right. So I assure you that I've not gone completely mad and got the wrong service. Right. It is the Secret Service. Because I was reading about this going, I'm never going to get away with this, am I? Somebody's going to go, oh. Right. So when the Secret Service were investigating somebody who they called the Mall Passer. They thought they were after a counterfeiter who had been making large sums from faking $20 bills and then spending them on cheap items and pocketing the real money. The mole passer, named because passing being the name for giving the money and getting the money back, in moles were his favourite shopping centres, were his favourite place to go, was a major problem. He was in many states. He was a problem. He was a major problem. Unfortunately, for everybody, perhaps fortunately, when they arrested the mole passer, they found something else. They found one of the most flexible, widespread, and deadly criminals in US history. They found a prolific kidnapper, rapist, and serial killer who nobody knew existed. Sex crimes expert Roy Hazelwood described the mole passer as the best documented sexual sadist since the Marquis de Sade. And nobody had any idea until he got done for printing $20 notes. So fortunately he was captured, but not perhaps in the way we might hope. So, what's going on here? Who is the mole passer? Right, I'm going to give you an apology now. It's very suspicious when you're watching a true crime podcast and they're talking about some serial killer and they start using their first name. That's a bit suspicious. I am going to have to use this man's first name because I have no hope of pronouncing his surname, right? Especially not 50 times. So I'm going to give it one go. Hello, James H. Good to see you. I'm going to give it one go and then we're going to call him Mike. And that's not me being respectful. That's just the fact I don't want to murder his surname. To the point where I look like an idiot. Oh, yes, James H. is saying, let's see it. This is good. I have chat. I can put this in chat. So, this man is called Mike Debar Diliban. Right, so Steve is heading off. He's preparing. We will be raiding into Steve shortly. Do stay for that. See you soon, Steve. Steve's on the front page. Any point tomorrow. Take a look. Yes, so you can see the name. If I tried to keep repeating that, I would just end up pronouncing gibberish. So he's called Mike. Yeah. Good luck, Steve. You're going to rock this. Actually, that's actually really bad pun. You're going to smash this, Steve. See you soon. So Mike was born on the 20th of March 1940 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Yes, James, it's the mole passer. Yes, so we did have an introduction on how the Secret Service, following a counterfeiter, inadvertently arrested one of the most dangerous and multi-talented is the wrong word, but multifaceted criminals in the whole of America. Kind of by accident. His father was in the military. His family frequently moved. His dad ended up a lieutenant colonel. The parents did not get on and stayed together only for the children. There were many affairs. The dad was often away, and the mother was an alcoholic out drinking. The father would beat Mike and as punishment half drown him. Mike was cared for by sister Linda, but he began to feel a seething anger towards his mother. This turned into a broader hatred of women, sadly. His younger brother actually killed himself, so Mike became a deeply, deeply scarred loner. In 1956, hang on, I'm going to cough. I'll just go. Sorry about that. I've got a bit of a cough, and it's not polite to cough on stream. So, thank you, Loto, for the follow. So in 1956, now age 16, Mike's anger turned to violence. He began to beat his mother. He would make many threats in the following period, sometimes involving weapons, and he brought a gun. This caused his first felony for possessing a concealed firearm. He was expelled from high school, joined the US Air Force to avoid prison, and lasted a year before being court-martialed for bad behaviour. He was sent to a psychiatrist, but the Air Force discharged him. He was now 18, and he moved to relatives in Fort Worth. The whole family were actively scared of him. In 1959, he enrolled in a local high school, but was expelled again after 3 months. He married Linda Weir, but she didn't last that long. They split after 3 weeks. He was arrested for attempted robbery and multiple car thefts, but only got probation. Obviously a very troubled individual. Despite all of this, Charlotte Weber fell for him and they started a relationship. They had a child in 1960. Unfortunately, her life took a turn. Her brother killed himself rather than return to the military. She had another baby, but Mike forced her to give it up for adoption and then divorced her. Ironically, that was probably, in fact, definitely for the best. Mike conned his way into 2 universities in 1961, but in 1962, a probation violation sent him to prison. On release, he went back to the family home and resumed beating his mother. Everyone noticed Mike was getting increasingly violent. His parents thought he should be in prison. And I think everyone watching this would probably agree with that so far. In 1964, he managed to marry again Wanda Faye Davis. He fooled her into thinking he was charming, but once together talked her into posing for photographs of explicit sadistic sex, and once he had these, blackmailed her into helping him with stuff we'll come on to later, and admitted his fantasies. He spoke of wanting to openly torture and kill women. She lost her first baby when he pushed her down some stairs. Her second child, fortunately, was born after they had divorced. Nonetheless, when they were together, Mike was arrested in 1966 for raping and kidnapping a girl in conjunction with her cousin, his wife's cousin. Unbelievably, the charges were withdrawn on the basis she had voluntarily got into the car with him. Well, obviously, she didn't think that was going to happen. And he completely got away with it. And as you'll find out, a massive opportunity to stop a weapons-grade psychopath was stopped. His fourth wife was a 17-year-old high school student. He subjected her to years of domination and control. He would rant about her to his victims, who we'll come across in a minute. and rehearses crimes on her. Anyway, that is all a very dubious criminal background. But now we get on to what he initially was known for, what people were initially searching for him for. So Mike had started producing fake money. He'd been making $100 bills and spending them himself, and in 1976 he was arrested for counterfeiting. It was just him. There was no broader crime syndicate. Secret Service investigators had paid him, and they discovered his printing machine in his home. They also found a huge quantity of sadistic pornography. He was convicted and imprisoned, let out to a halfway house in 1978. And unbelievably, an error meant, well, the investigators thought he had died. Mike moved and began to counterfeit again, this time with a new plan. He would fake $20 notes, easier to pass. He would go into a shop or restaurant, buy something very cheap, and then keep the real change as profit. He escalated this and did it as widely as possible. He was a master of fake IDs. By 1982, he was making £130,000 a year in profit, visiting 65 cities in over 40 states. The Secret Service were, of course, after the mall passer, but they didn't know it was him. They'd worked out there was a large multi-state scam in fake 20s, and they'd been able to identify the flaws in his notes, so like a fingerprint, so they knew it was this one press. So they called the man behind this scheme the mall passer. The investigators built up a description of the passer and sent it to shops. The orders were simple. If someone looking like this handed over a 20, staff were to call police. Well, they did, and they found a man who, when they stopped him, was using 2 aliases, and then they tied him to his real name, and Mike was arrested in Maryville, Tennessee. He had fake bills on him divided up and labelled with the targets. In his car they found guns, drugs, pornography, 18 licence plates, 9 fake driver's licences, and a police badge. So they'd caught the counterfeiter, but of course you need to prove things. So they searched his home, hoping to find a printing press. They really needed to find evidence of the printing to prove his counterfeiting. They searched his home, couldn't find anything. Growing concerned, they searched again and again, and they found a piece of paper stuck in a yellow pages. This piece of paper was on adverts for storage units. They found Mike's unit and discovered that the owner of the storage unit had called police with suspicions about him, but it hadn't been followed up. At first they looked for his counterfeiting equipment. And this is where things take the turn. What they actually discovered was a vast collection of photographs of women being raped and killed, as well as handcuffs, whips, audio tapes of the crimes, and trophies. They found copious written notes on kidnapping, written references to his crimes, as well as tapes of him just fantasizing. Suddenly, the FBI had found a sex attacker of a vast and unknown nature, and possibly a serial killer, again, who was not known. The FBI identified 40 women in these photos, but they have not been able to identify their names and fates. There's a theory. In some of the photographs, Mike and his victim have visible faces. This, they believe, is where he let them go. In some of the photos, Mike's face isn't visible. These are possibly where he killed them. So no one knows how many women he actually raped and tortured, and possibly killed, and Mike never admitted it or talked to his cellmates about it. However, his campaign of abuse has been identified as 18 years long. He had several MOs. Do you remember the police badge in his car? One, he pretended to be a policeman, kidnapped the victims, abused them, made tape recordings and photographs of it. Sometimes he let them go, abandoning them in the wild. Sometimes he killed them. He also targeted female realtors, lured them alone to a house thinking he was a buyer, killed them there. He had 26 known aliases for luring women. Why was he unknown? Well, he did not act spontaneously. His crimes were incredibly rehearsed, practiced in his mind, and acted out. He was methodical and careful. And he, until he was caught for counterfeiting, had completely flown under the radar. Oh wow! Thanks, James H, for the subscription. I'm glad you're enjoying this. I don't have a snappy name for subscribers. I'm reminded of it because there was a joke. I saw this joke online where somebody put me brutally murdered and left by a roadside. True crime podcasters, welcome, murder muffins. I'm like, yeah, I see your point. We're not doing that. But welcome to the subscriber group. I'm not even going to say sub club. I mean, Jesus. I'm trying to be careful. So once investigators realised what they had and what had been doing, cases all over the country were reopened and reinvestigated. So they did actually identify some of the victims, and we're going to go through them now. So Edna Terry MacDonald was 52 on June 5th, 1979. She went to show Peter Morgan around a house she was selling. She was a realtor. She was strangled with her stockings and left hanging up. The investigation didn't progress far until Mike was caught and another similar crime was identified. That similar crime was Jean McFall. I don't know why I went French. He was 37. She was a realtor in Louisiana. She left in 1982. She left to show Dr. Zach around the building. He stabbed her, strangled her, and hung her from a rafter. Someone living next to the property gave a description of the man, which later led police to Mike. Dr. Zach was a pseudonym listed in the papers. He was only passing through the state. When he was finally caught, Bossier City Chief of Detectives said, "This is a burden off my shoulders." The McFall case was the most intensive investigation, the longest investigation, and probably the most expensive investigation ever conducted by this department. We did a lot of travelling and spent a lot of money. And they didn't catch him until he got done for counterfeiting. Mike was charged with both murders, and the death penalty was desired, but it didn't reach court. Had it reached court, he would probably have been executed. But by the time those cases would have reached court, he was already in prison for the rest of his life, and it was deemed that it didn't make financial sense to continue. I think James H. might disagree that they should have stopped, given what you've just said, James. I think you mean they probably should have pursued that one. Anyway, I'm going to go through possible victims. I need to stress we don't know, as in this case, there's so much we don't know. He was under the radar for so long. But possible victims. Lucy Alexander, 19, who would have been kidnapped and left alive. Elizabeth Mason was a realtor. She showed a man around a house in 1979. He beat her with a gun, tied her up and strangled her until she passed out. She awoke and was able to get help. Lloyd Johnson, 20, was a shop worker. A policeman pulled her over, claiming to question her about a robbery, handcuffed her, drove her for 3 hours, subjected her to 3 days of confinement and assault, recording it all, wearing nothing but a makeshift hood, and then drove her back and dumped her alive. The Secret Service found the tape that was made of her being abused, in which she begs to be allowed to die because it was so painful, but she was found and was able to testify in his trial. Diane Overton was 25 and out driving when Mike pulled her over disguised as a policeman. He tried to rape and kidnap her, but she fought him off. He tried to run her over, but she managed to get out of the way, and she survived. Maria Santini, again, was a 27-year-old shop worker. He used a gun to get into a car, drove her away, and abused her, but she, again, was dumped alive. Despite all of these people being alive and able to give accounts to the police, he was not caught through those investigations. Mike's journal connects him to the kidnapping and ransom case of Joe Rapini and David Starr. Now this is one of the other things about Mike. Counterfeiter, kidnapper, rapist, murderer, but also bank robber. He was incredibly flexible. He did a huge range of crimes. He had one of the most broad range of criminal activities. And that is, again, what makes him one of the most dangerous criminals in America at the time. He was not just doing one thing. He was engaged in a whole plethora of stuff and doing it, I don't want to say successfully, but in the sense of a criminal getting away with things, he was getting away with it. So, a masked man appeared in the home of Joe Rapini and David Starr, took Rapini away and told Starr to get $70,000 from the bank he worked in. Starr did, left where he was told, and a woman in a car collected it. Rapini was found shot to death after. Again, this doesn't suggest it fits his MO, and it suggests he had accomplices who were never found. Thank you, Ditch, for the gift sub. Hey, Ditch says, balls, I forgot I was watching the election results. There is absolutely no shame in watching tonight's election results instead of me. I don't. Hello, Thelonious. This kind of watershed moment doesn't come around very long. I wouldn't necessarily expect anybody to be here instead of the telly. Although I should point out, things don't get very interesting in the coverage until about 3:30 to 4, which is possibly when we'll see a certain bespectacled, top-hatted man get thrown out of power. Anyway, I would also like to say hello, Thelonious Monk. Great to see you. I hope the kitten is good. I hope the kitten is good. And Mrs. Sid, great to see you. Yeah, Ditch is correct. It's pointless, nothing of substance will change. That is true. It will just be the faces, but, you know. Which is why, Ditch, I'm doing a crime stream and then modding for Steve. I agree with you, Ditch, which is why I'm doing this. But, you know. Where was the FBI system? Well, exactly. This guy's completely getting away with everything and wasn't caught because of it. He's caught something else. It's kind of insane, and this is one of the reasons we're doing it. It's a very strange story. Yeah, Mrs. Sid, family costume. That's very kind of you to say, Mrs. Sid. That's very kind of you to say. We've still got. We're just finishing up one crime. We've still got one and then a quick one to go. So don't worry. So the Secret Service had started this to convict someone of counterfeiting. They weren't. Have we seen any Polly action? No, you've not missed Polly, Ditch. It's funny actually because at about 1:45 Polly came and sat on my desk and was sort of as if acting, why are you sat in the dark, Daddy? The answer being, because you're sat on the mouse and I can't turn the lights on. But after that she had a grumpy meow and wandered off. So I don't know what she's doing. I'll tell you what she's doing. Because a certain little kitty means I can only open one window in the house, and that's the bathroom window. The bathroom is relatively cooler. This means Polly has spent a lot of time sleeping in the bathroom. This means I can't use the bathroom because there is a cat in it. That gets a bit uncomfortable. We've had to reach for the emergency dreamies. As anybody with a cat knows, you do not want to use the emergency dreamies too much, lest they cease becoming emergency and become the on-demand dreamies. But we've had to lure her. I'm not sure where she is right now. I'm trying to get. I'm not going to give you the gory details, but I'm trying to get her to do something for a test, and it's not going well. Oh, you just dropped your baby off at the vet. Oh, is she staying overnight, Thelonious? Is she staying overnight? Oh, no, it's 8 a.m. for you. Sorry, I'm an idiot. Yes, you'll be able to pick her up later in the day. Yeah, Mrs. said, Polly, if I close the door in the bathroom, Polly will act like I'm being viciously attacked and will attempt to beat the door down. Nevertheless, I'm not actually comfortable with her in there when doing my ablutions. Ditchboy thinks she's the only person she still hides from. Well, we didn't have movie club this week, or last week, so we do not know. I will let you know next week if people come round whether she will emerge. Yeah. You might see it tomorrow, did you? Might see it tomorrow. I don't think you will, but you might. You might do. Maybe tuna on your pizza. No, because I want to eat my pizza. Yesterday I made a tuna salad, and I had to lock her out of the office so I could eat my salad without being viciously mugged. And there was somebody who could smell the tuna banging on the door protesting. Right, so the Secret Service weren't really set up to pursue serial killers. So they formed a task force to link the evidence they'd found to cases from across the US. In the end, Mike was indicted 11 times, twice for murder. Dick says tuna on my pizza then. Mike was one of these people that decides to represent himself. As you know, that always goes very, very badly. Unfortunately, this meant two things. First, he made a victim listen to his audio recording of her, but it also meant he vastly implicated himself in the crimes by asking them things only the culprit would know about. This was quite handy in a trial, and he was found guilty, but not of murder, because the murder cases hadn't come to trial. He was found guilty of counterfeiting, kidnapping, attempted robbery, sodomy, and given 375 consecutive years in prison. After this, no further cases were pursued because he was probably going to be dead. And he is. He died of pneumonia on January 26, 2011. So, was Mike a serial killer? Most probably. How many did he kill? We have no idea, and we're never going to know. The potential geographic area of the killings, the time period, his habit of switching MO, his deep planning and refusal to do anything spontaneously, make him both one of the most mysterious and dangerous men there's ever been in the US. Mrs. Sids just said, "You sound so British." I mean, yeah, I guess that's kind of inevitable. How did he get away with it? Somebody in chat has asked. Well, as we've stressed, he did not do the same thing over and over. Mrs. Sid says, "I'm British, but I don't sound that British." I see what you mean. Yeah. I believe I don't really have an accent that fits in to any particular local area where I live. But I won't dox myself. People still ask me where I'm from. I've lived in since I was 11. People are like, "Where are you from?" Yeah. Yeah, there are. There are. I don't really know where I sound like I'm from. For this. How did he get away with it? Well, firstly, he didn't do the same thing in a small area. Rob largely speaks in received pronunciation. Yeah. He didn't do the same thing over and over again. He planned. This sounds like I'm giving some sort of lesson, but I don't write this down and follow it, psychopaths. But what did he contribute? The FBI set out to study Mike and learn from what he'd done. They revised all their training programs to support somebody as flexible as him. You remind me of an English professor. Yes, I do. I mean, yeah, I do. I believe I do come across very academic, because that's kind of my calling. So that's kind of where I've been. So, yeah. So anyway, that's Mike's surname. I'm still not going to try and pronounce because it would just end up with me going blah, 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 blah. Although he deserves it, but you know. Need to get you some altering classes. Yeah, don't worry. I mean, as you know, Ditch, literally everybody in my family needs classes at a certain point. So that's coming. We know that's coming. It's inevitable. So the question is, chaps, do we want, and ladies, sorry, being British and just using chaps for everybody, not a very sensible thing to do in this age, not a very nice thing to do. We have one more story. Please let me pick your frames when that day comes. Look, I might take you with me, but you can make suggestions. You can make suggestions that will be seriously considered. This is the intellectual channel. Yeah, I feel flattered, but I probably can't live up to that. Anyway, so what we have left, we have a breaking news, or we have a bit of a crazy, twisty, fully researched story. I think we'll save the breaking news for the end. You'll look like Elton John. Well, you know. I'm not going to give you the title of this story. So when this story appears in True Crime Dossiers 4, which is my true crime book series available on Amazon, please see a poster. It will have a title, but I'm not going to give you that title because it will give away what's going to happen. Right? And we're here for a bit of drama, a bit of a twist. Okay. So I'm warning you, there is going to be a twist. So, in December 2018, in Australia, Bradley Lyons, title placeholder Sir Jeremy, who was known by his nickname as BJ, which we're going to not mention ever again, was about to suffer a terrible fate. Someone had started spreading the rumours that Bradley had not only caused his wife's recent overdose, but that he was abusing their children. This caught the attention of Albert Thorne and Nick Stefani. The latter were part of the Vigilante Australian Freedom Fighters group. Their aim was applying vigilante frontier justice to paedophiles. Thorne was so committed, his entire back was devoted to a tattoo with their name and crossed pistols. Lyons was also Stefani's landlord. So the rumours got to them very quickly. A plan was organised, and these rumours weren't just tittle-tattle in the streets. It was his wife, Jana Cooper, telling people he'd been abusing the kids. So a plan was organised. On December 2nd, 2018, Jana opened the door to 4 visitors: Thorne, Stefani, Alec Harvey and Ricky Smith. They had balaclavas, metal clubs and a shotgun. They came in and took turns beating Lyons. Stefani stubbed a cigarette out in his eye and Jana waited in the kitchen. They wanted a confession. They wanted to beat a confession out of him and dump him at a police station. They told him he'd be killed unless he told them what he had done. Lyons was the father of 8 children, co-parenting 3 with Jana. When Lyons refused to confess, he was tied up, stuck in the boot of a car and driven to property owned by Thorne's mother. He was left in the boot in extreme heat and could be heard screaming, "Get me out of here or kill me now," which unfortunately they decided to progress with. The original plan was abandoned, and they discussed in an old water tank what to do. Lyons was taken to a shed, taken to a massage table, where they beat him and burned him with boiling water and held a revving chainsaw near him. Thorne suggested they tattoo paedophile onto him, but in the end they tied him up again, stuck him in the back in the boot, drove him into the bush, dug a grave, shot him as he lay on the ground and buried him. Polly's here, but I now can't touch my mouse because she sat on it. So we'll continue the story, and if she moves into cat-cam position, we'll see. 9 days later, it was Lyon's brother who reported him missing. Police checked the family home and realised There was a CCV system in the home that had been disabled and somebody had taken the hard drive. Tell me it'll go away. Jana said the hard drive for the CCTV had been taken years ago, but the police had Lyon's phone and it actually had a photo, a recent photo, showing that the CCTV worked. So the police were suspicious. In the end, they found the grave 3 months later when one of the conspirators cracked and took them to it. The gang were arrested and put on trial. The first collapsed to a dodgy juror, but the second found Thorne guilty of murder. There were also lesser charges. While Thorne denied it, there was testimony from his 8-year-old daughter, who told her he'd killed a man who was rude to children, but she shouldn't tell the police. So naturally she told the police. And Jana was arrested. You may be thinking, why was Jana arrested? Well, have you wondered why, after hours of torture, Lyons never actually confessed to abusing any children? Because he hadn't. After a full police investigation, there was zero evidence he'd done anything, only that Jana, a struggling meth addict, had decided to have her husband killed and set him completely up. She told Thorne that Lyons had got her 16 and 14-year-old daughters pregnant, which is a pretty easy thing to prove didn't happen. The Australian Freedom Fighters group also had a meth problem and unleashed their drug-fueled violence on Lyons. When the grave was found, there was only 93% of his body in it. Both feet had been cut off, as well as some of his hands. We don't know where they are. The attackers didn't really remember what they'd done and had confused memories of it, but one of them definitely remembered sawing his hands off after the killing. The group threw a party. So yeah, he was completely stitched up and killed by people who thought they were sort of doing the right thing. Thorne received a 32-year sentence with no parole. He will be in his 80s if he lives that long. Jana agreed a plea deal and was given 7.5 years. She was told in no uncertain terms you betrayed him. And that is the story entitled The Betrayal of Bradley Lyons. So, I like a good twist. Yes, it's hard to justify torture as part of vigilante justice. Yes, it is kind of hard to justify tying somebody down, boiling water over them, and then sawing their hands off while they're alive for whatever crime you're trying to stop someone doing. That does seem to be beyond the pale, especially when you're completely off your tits on meth. Like, that's, much of a moral improvement. Yeah. Right, so that is all the official stories, but we have one more to go. We have a breaking news story that's incredible, and I hope you're still here, Sydney, because this one mentions Michigan, although if they just killed him, it would be tragic, but yeah, torturing the shit out of him is a bit mad. So Sydney, this mentions Michigan. That's for everyone that's here that wasn't here at the beginning. I sort of said to Sydney, it's great, I've got a story about that mentions Michigan, and then I realised on this channel you don't want your home state featured. Like, you'd be perfectly happy if you watched all of these and it didn't mention where you lived, right? Because this is not the channel where you want to be mentioned. Polly's wandered off, by the way. Can we let me go to cat. Can we? There, you can see Polly. You can see Polly posing away in the distance. She has come up. She's had a little sniff. She's had a wander off. There she is. I'm tempted, right? It might be better to wire a cat cam up in the hallway, because cat butt confirmed. Yeah, I'm sorry everybody, you're getting cat butt tonight. Now, somebody told me that if a cat shows you its butt, that means they trust you because they're not suspicious and they're leaving themselves vulnerable. So everybody in chat, I want you to feel blessed that you're seeing my cat's ass. Dishboy goes, yeah. Roxy Ross says it's about time to put the kettle on. Yeah, the training's not going well. I mean, that's not what I said. If you create, no, that's not. I'm not creating you this. I'm creating somebody else. Yeah, I've not managed to train her to do useful tasks yet. I'm sure that'll come. Yes, Thelonious, you get heaps of cat butts because they love you, but possibly also because you've got 27 cats. I imagine you'll always have some. I mean, the way they run around, there must be like 100% certainty one is facing that way. Yes, if they show you their belly. I have been shown belly, but I've not been brave enough to go in for a belly rub. I feel, to quote Admiral Akbar, I feel that's a trap. Yeah, sleeping on or near you and showing belly are the main ones. Yes, she does sleep on me. 27. Yes, Tom. Thelonious, tell Tom how many cats you have, because I'm not making it up. That's not me completely going crazy. Yeah, Thelonious does have, I think it's 26 or 27 kitties, which is a sufficient amount of kitties. I hope you probably got a bigger house than I have, because otherwise I would never get to sit down or lie down ever again. All right, so we've got a lovely and slightly insane story for you. If you could train those 27 cats, you could get them to pull a sled. Yes. You could run your own football league, Ditch, or at least have a full match. In fact, you've got half an NFL team of cats. So if they play both ways, like they used to in the past, you've got an NFL team of cats. Who needs the puppy bowl when you can just have a load of cats sat there looking completely uninterested? That's what I'd tune in for. Right, so breaking news. I'm going to be honest, I have not heard of the streamers Clicks and Lacey. That's no disrespect, I'm not down with popular streamers, but so there's these two streamers called Clicks and Lacey. This week they were doing an in real life stream in Miami. So I've seen this. So they're sat basically at a cafe outside and they're filming. And this shirtless boy comes over. They're in Miami. You know, there's a lot of shirtless boys. He comes over and he has a chat. And nobody really thought. I mean, he looks a bit spaced out, you know, but he's in Miami. But he was recognised. Right. This wasn't just some random kid that passed by. He was Troy Coleman, and he has been missing for 3 months from Michigan. He's been missing so much, he's actually the subject of a murder investigation because they thought he'd been killed. And he turned up randomly on a live stream. So the good news is he's alive and everyone knows he's alive. The bad news is, well, they're now having to run around Miami and try and find where the hell he is. And had those two not been streaming there, no one would know where he is. In real life stream sort of has a good effect, possibly. Oh, we've moved to bunnies now. Thelonious wishes she could only have 4 cats and 27 bunnies. Ditch, who's had bunnies, says the bunnies would chew your house to bits. Bits, sorry. I'll edit that out. Then it says the one big girl already does. Are we going to do it right now? I was unsure whether to say this, But it turned out I've lived in the same area in my town for a very long time. And when I bought my own house, I moved literally a 1 to 2 minute walk. So I've always lived in this area. This week, there has been a flasher literally where I live, wandering about, which is bizarre. The police are doing patrols. So, am I going to do an disclaimer? Yes, disclaimer. It's not me. I have alibis. I also don't look like a 60-year-old balding man, which is the description. But yeah, am I going to do it in a real live stream, wandering around trying to? Do you know? I feel like that that some really tasteless true crime streamers would try and do that. Like, I feel somebody. Yeah, Tom has a flasher, old school. Yeah. I've not heard of flashers for many years. Like, they're all, in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, there seemed to be a lot of them. But now we've got one. I'm not sure what comes next. Some cattle theft. Anyway, I'm not going to be both achingly crass and hip and wander around trying to find them live on stream. Mr. said you should read about some of the stuff that happened on my street and around my house. It's ridiculous. I would love to. I love this stuff. If you could point me to that. Do we still have messaging on this? If you could message me. Yeah, see one Rockstar. Like, yeah, why are you flashing? These days you just send people unsolicited dick pics and get arrested and imprisoned for that, because that is now against the law, fortunately, and you can get arrested and put in prison for that in Britain. So if you're watching in Britain and someone sends you a dick pic you don't want, ring the cops, because you can get them locked up. So Dick says, one of my old colleagues' wife got flashed. Flasher got off his bike, flashed her, got back on the bike and cycled off. Now, without wanting to get too technical, it sounds like there's a lot of things that could get damaged if you're able to leap off and flash someone and then leap on a bike. Now, I'm wanting to get very technical. I feel that's quite dangerous. I feel like he might get home with slightly less functioning equipment than he went out with. Right. This is your Discord. Perfect, Mrs. Sid. So yes, I do have a Discord. It's a great chance for you to tell me about true crimes, or put me in the direction, or request something, or just have a chat. Thank you, Foxy. He was definitely committed, sisters. Yes, he was. All right, so Foxy is in, which I believe means Steve isn't yet on. So we'll just have to keep going for a bit. Oh yeah, okay. So the question is, what are we going to do? Right, I'm going to do I've got a story saved that I want to press into. It may not even remotely be true. Right, so tortoise crime. We did that, Ditch. You requested it. We did it. There's not much tortoise crime, to be honest. Right, it's smuggling and not much else. Right, so we're going to move into a portion of the show called Robert hasn't researched this in any way. Llama crime. Yeah, they spit at you. How is Manual Jack the Ripper project coming along? It is still ongoing. Sydney. I have been working on it alongside this stream and pursuing job hunting, for want of a better summation. Bunny crimes. I'm fairly certain there's a lot of bunny crimes. Alright, so I'm just going to cover a bizarre tweet, right? So this is not right. So normally everything I do in this show has been researched. I'm confident in what I'm telling you. This section, disclaimer, it's just me reading out a weird tweet. Right. So I don't want anybody to come back in a year and go, That was wrong. Yes, it's probably wrong, but it's very weird, and we're going to cover it. So, there is a Colorado resident who thinks he's found the location of some serial killing. Why? Because he keeps finding high heels in a remote location in western Colorado. Now, this is a bit unusual because the man alleging this, he's not involved in true crime. He's got a YouTube account, and it's a long-running YouTube account, and he's never covered anything like this, right? He does countertop epoxy. He's dedicated to epoxy kits, right? But he's been going out, walking about, and he's found something, so he did a video on it. Now, I want to watch the video and do a full thing, but we're just filling a bit of time, so we're just going to do this as a bit of a teaser. So, a counter epoxy on YouTube says, I spent every single weekend and every other day in between I could out here in the desert exploring, and I have here what I believe is a crime. His name is Levi Cornstalk. So he keeps finding women's shoes. And I don't want to insult anybody in western Colorado, but I'm going to call it a godless desert. Wasteland. She says this right here is a pair of boots, one of 10 pairs I have found of different sizes of high heels. I would love to know if any of you guys know of any disappearances. He's found them around a pond. The pond is much higher now, and I'm guessing that whoever is throwing these shoes down here is expecting that. He says usually they're going to be underwater. I've had to come back quite a few times now to catch the pond this low, so usually all these shoes you see along the shoreline are submerged underwater. I'm looking for help with this if anybody recognises this. So, in chat, is any of your radars going off? Does anybody there go, oh, that sounds like it could be a serial killer? Or are you a bit more like, well, serial killer or fly tipping? Yeah. Now, I don't know what the wildlands of western Colorado are like, but I'm relatively certain I could walk around Flitwick, wherever I may live, and find a number of abandoned shoes anyway, right? I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure, but I do want to follow this up and have a look. It's interesting. So far we have done proven or at least deeply suspected crimes. We've not really got into the whole. I don't want to use the word conspiracy, but I'm going to. Into the more conspiratorial things. Yeah, you could drive there and walk around. Yeah, I could drive there and walk around. Allegedly, this is all. So I don't know. I will just get to you in a second, Mrs. Sid. So I don't know whether to move into what may be a flight of fancy. I quite like covering real, telling you real things. Which is why this hasn't actually been researched any further so far, because I'm quite, as somebody pointed out, I'm a very boring academic that is that likes to actually have things right, and I'm not really in here for the hype. Ditch says if there were women's feet still in the shoes, I'd be more convinced. And that's interesting you've said that, Ditch, because there is a portion of the North American continental coast where a load of shoes with feet in them have washed up. And they have been investigated, and it's genuinely been believed this is not a serial killer. It's just that when people fall in or throw themselves in to the sea, the shoes, the ankles rot first, and the buoyant shoes, by the current, get collected, and they all end up in essentially the same place. So we've been assured it's not a serial killer. But what Ditch just described actually happened, and still happens, and isn't. So if this guy's just finding shoes on its own, when somebody's actually found a load of feet in shoes and it wasn't, probably not time to panic yet. Yeah, maybe actually, Ditch, I should cover that, shouldn't I? That would be a really good. Oh, that would be a really good story. Didn't think of that. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we should definitely do things that look really, really like crimes, but actually aren't crimes when they look them up. Even though everyone, oh yeah, I found 9. Who did they ask that came up with that? Yeah, like, did they ask the man who did it? Oh yeah, it's definitely not me. I did investigate that scientist. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the expert, and I definitely did. I mean, this isn't it. Yeah. So thank you, Ditch, for gigantifying Polly and Polly kissing. I know that was like 20 minutes ago, but I've got to catch up. Ditch says, yeah, it's well known that women's feet fall off in the sea. The thing is, Ditch, they do. This is what we were told. This is the conclusion. The conclusion is the ankles, because they've got the foot in the shoe, it protects the foot, and then when the ankle falls off the leg, they genuinely do. Allegedly, according to some experts. Can you imagine if you're the expert who's had to study what happens when a body's in water for a long period of time? That must be a grim job. I know it's very necessary to solve crimes and murders and suicides and stuff, but, can you imagine? Oh, what are you doing today, love? Oh, I'm going in to look at a rotting body in a tank. So they're braver than I am, let's put it that way. And the people that work on body farms, who've worked out exactly what kind of paste you turn into if you've been in a wood for 3 years. It's not a job. Mrs. It, you should say how much crime scene cleaner names. I'd do it. Yeah. Now, you probably get desensitized. Crime scene cleaner's mine. Yeah, I'm looking for a job. Crime scene cleaner. I think I'm alright. I don't think I did. Now, Mrs. Sid, you did ask me a question, and I did not forget. I'm going to go back now. Not with my niece. Yeah, actually,